Be'ezus Hashem. Today's daf is daf Tes. We're beginning by the Tanu Rabbanan about Chesam and Beis, about two lines from the wide lines. So we're discussing over here scenarios. That's the whole daf today. Different scenarios. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught Hiskat sheli b'mana. A man goes over to a woman and says, "Be mukudeshes to me with this mana." Mana is like 100 zuz. So instead of saying thank you, we're married, we're engaged, what she does is she says, "Tneim la'aba olavicha." Give it to your father. Give it to my father or to your father. What did she mean by that? Give it to my father or your father. So basically, she's saying, as if she's saying, kishmech. She doesn't want the money. Ain't mukudeshes. She's not mukudeshes. Because you would think that she meant to say, give it to my father, your father as a gift. Maybe that's what she meant. And she really wants to be engaged to this man. But the Gemara, the Mishnah Brisa says she's not mukudeshes. But what if she says, Almanas sheyekablum li? If she says, give it to my father, your father, on the condition that they accept to hold it on my behalf. So they're like my bankers. Give it to them. So then, mukudeshes, she becomes mukudeshes, because he made her father or his father as a shliach to accept the money of the kedushin on her behalf. Says the Brisa. So the Gemara talks it out. Tana, Abba. It says the example of give it to my father, to teach you the power of the beginning. That if she just says name la Abba, give it to my father. You don't say she meant give it to my father as a gift, but she meant to say stick it in your face. So that tells you the power of the beginning, that as long as she didn't say almanas, she's not mukudeshes. Tana avicha, and it says the scenario of his father, right? Her future father-in-law, give it, and she says, on condition that he accepts it on my behalf, to teach you the power of the end of the end. The second case, whereas if she says on condition that your father accepts it on my behalf, then she would be mukudeshes, because you would think she doesn't even know his father. So how can he trust his father to be a shliach to hold on to kedusha money? Nevertheless, if she says that, she becomes mukudeshes. What happens if she says hiskachi li b'mona? The man says to the woman, again, a similar case, be mukudeshes to me with this mana. She says, give it to so and so, give it to Ruve, a stranger. Ain't mukudeshes, not mukudeshes, because obviously she's saying, get out of here, I don't want to accept your money. But if she says on condition that so and so will get the money on my behalf, mukudeshes, she's mukudeshes. Utzricha, and we need both cases, which is pretty much the same case as the case where she says to name the Abba Levicha. So why do we say the same scenarios? One is using ploini, and one set of scenarios is using Abba Avicha as the example. So the Gemara says, if we just say Abba Avicha, if we just say the case of give it to my father or your father, Hasam hu da amra chi amra, over there I would say that if she changes it around and says Amanashi kablim li, on condition they accept it on my behalf, only then have a kedushin, that it would be a kedushin. Why? Because at the end of the day, she's related to her father, and she's going to be related to his father. The samcha data ilu. She relies in her mind. She's relying on them and trusts them to hold on to her kedushin money. Savra, she's thinking to herself, of the lishusayu, they're going to be my messengers to accept the kedushin money. Avaploni, but if it's some stranger, loy, she's not soymech das. In other words, she doesn't rely on some stranger accepting the responsibility of holding on to her kedushin money. So I would think it wouldn't be a good kedushin if it was a stranger. That's why we have to say the second brisa, second case, that even by a stranger, if you say Amanashi Kamuli, it's mukudeshes. The Ashmi in Ploini, if we would just say the case of Ploini, so I would say that if it was dealing with a stranger, only in that case, if you say give it to so and so, loy have a kedushin. That's not a kedushin, because you say she says give it to him. She has no connection with that person to give that person a free gift. So for certainly it's not a kedushin. But to her father and his father, if she would just say, just give it to my father or your father, maybe she meant to say, I want to be mukudeshes to you, but I want to give them a gift. The bikarva daite legabeyu. She's somehow close to these people, getting close to these people. Maybe he's giving it to them as a matana. So therefore, it's tzricha as a gift. Tzricha, that's why we say that if she says, just plain out, give it to your father, my father, then she's not mukudeshes. Scenario, new case. Taner Rabbanim, hiskacheli b'mona. A man says to a woman, be mukudeshes to me with a mana. So what does she answer? Tneim al gabesel, just put the money on a rock. That's like, an insult. Ain't a mukudeshes, she's not mukudeshes. Vimhoya sela shalah, but if the rock belonged to her, mukudeshes, she's mukudeshes. One, because it's like her chotzer, it's like her domain, so to speak. So she's saying, put it there, and that's as if you gave it to me. And furthermore, the fact that he is listening to her, when she sees that he is listening to her, she could become mukudeshes even if she doesn't receive the money because of an aref. They're saying she's committing herself because when she sees somebody listening to her, she gets benefit from that. So therefore, she's mukudeshes. Boyer a baby. So a baby asked the question, if she said, put it on this rock, but this rock belonged to both her and the future husband, is it a good kedushin? So the Gemara remains by that question. It's not clear. Maybe it's only if the rock totally belongs to her, is she mukudeshes. Next case. Hizgachali bikikar. She says to the woman, be mukudeshes me with this loaf of bread. He went to the bakery, got a loaf of bread, and says, this loaf of bread is yours for kedusha. So she answers back, Taneu lekelev, give it to the dog. Einu mukudeshes, she's not mukudeshes. But vimhoya kelev shalah, but if it's her dog, so mukudeshes, she's mukudeshes. I don't know how he's going to feel about that, but yes, she's mukudeshes because basically he's saving her from paying for a meal for the dog. Boyer Rav Mari asked the question, Kelev ratzach reha. A dog is running after a lady and is about to bite the lady. So somebody saves her by throwing a piece of bread at the dog, and the dog runs and eats the bread. And so he saved her. Maho. Now the truth is that if it was a stranger, you'd have to pay back the bread. Somebody saved your life, saved you from getting bitten, you have to give the guy back the bread if he spent money to save you. So, but he said to her, instead of paying me back, be mukudeshes to me. So maybe, and she smiled. Basically, she smiled. We don't know if she meant yes or no. So, you know how women are polite. So we don't know what she meant. So did she mean bahu hana de komatz l'naf shemine? With this hana that he saved her life, Gomra, she 100% made up her mind. And she's selling herself to him to become his wife. It's a hero. Dilma, maybe Matsu Amrle, she can say Miduraisa chiyuv de mechayv de latzuli. Miduraisa, you're obligated to save somebody if they're in trouble. So therefore, I'll pay you back for the bread. Maybe she meant I don't want to be your wife, but you're a nice guy. But I maybe she's saying, maybe she meant to say she doesn't, by smiling, she's basically saying that's what you're supposed to do. Good Samaritans, that's what they're supposed to do. Teiku, the Gemara remains by this question. Hiskacheli bikikar, a man goes over to a woman and says, be mukudeshes to me with this loaf of bread. She said, Tnei la'oni, give it to a poor person, I don't need it. Ain't mukudeshes, she's not mukudeshes. Afilu ona samachla. And here, even if the poor person is relying on her, it's her like favorite charity. Give it to them. She's not mukudeshes. Why? My tama amalei, because she can say to him, just like I'm supposed to support this poor person, you're also required to support this person, and therefore I'm never required to pay you back if I don't want to be mukudeshes to you. So therefore, certainly in that case, if she says give it to the poor person, she's not mukudeshes. Says the Gemara story. Ahu Gavra, there was this man. We go to on the top of the page. She was selling necklaces with glass coins, so to speak, glass pieces in it. I'll say there was a girl who came. Amalei, she said to the man, Havli chad shlucha, give me one necklace. He's selling it. Amalei, so he said to her, if I give you a necklace, will you become mukudeshes to me? Amalei, she said this answer. Hava miyava. I want you to give it to me. So did she mean yes, I'm mukudeshes to you, or not? Rav Chama said, "Called hava demiava." If she says give, so we say lav kluma. She didn't mean to say she's becoming his wife. She meant to say she was anxious to get the item. She's desperate for the item, but not yet. She wants to get engaged to him. Hahu Gavra, there was this man, the Hava Koshasacham Rabbi Chanusas. He was drinking a beer, let's say, a glass of wine in a bar. I'll say a woman came. Amalei said to him, Havli chad kasa, give me a cup of beer, or give me a cup of wine. Amalei, so he told her, if I give you a cup of wine, mikadashtali, will you become betrothed to me? Amalei, so she said, Ashkri, please give me the drink. So did she mean yes, I'm going to become your wife? Or she just wants to have a drink? Amar Rav Chama, call Ashkri Ashkim. She says it twice. Lav klum, it's nothing, because she's basically saying that her main interest is to get that wine, not to become married to the guy. Hahu Gavra, but there was this man, the Hava Koshadi Tamre Midikla. Again, another story. Not food, a drink, and now we're giving a guy was throwing dates from a date tree. I'll say it's a woman came. Amalei Shadili Tarte, give me 2 dates, food. Amalah, he said to her, Ishadin lech, if I throw you a date, Mikadashtali, will you become betrothed to me and become my wife? Amalei, she said to him, Shadei Mishta, please throw. And he threw it. Now the question is, did she agree to become his wife? Amar Rav Zvid said, Kol Shadei Mishta lav klumhu. When you say throw, it means she's desperate. She wants to just the dates, but she's not agreeing to become his wife. So the common denominator of these 3 stories are, because she said it twice, it's obvious that her interest is to get the item, but not to agree to become his wife. So the question then becomes, if she would have said, have, one time, give it to me, ashke, give me to drink, ushte, or throw me 1 date, and she didn't repeat herself, Mahod, what do we mean? What did she mean by that? Did she mean to say, sort of, okay, throw it, and I'll agree, and basically she's agreeing because he threw and gave her a drink, or gave her some dates, or gave her the necklace, so she agreed to become his wife, because she didn't show desperation by saying it twice. So Amar Ravina says Mukudeshes. So she says it once, she's become Mukudeshes. Here we have a new Amoira who disagrees with Ravina, and his name is Rav Sama Bar Rakta, a very strange name. And he said, Amar, he says, Tagar de Malka. He says, I swear in the name of the king, Aina Mukudeshes. She's not Mukudeshes. Because saying it once, she didn't say, yes, I want to be your wife. She just said, give it to me. Even if though she said it once, she means, just give it to me. I don't want to become your wife. The Hilka said the halacha is like Rav Sama. The Gemara says Rav Sama is correct. Aina Mukudeshes. The halacha is she's not Mukudeshes. The Hilka said the halacha is Shiroi Loitzricha Shuma. That we saw that yesterday, that if you Mekadesh an Isha with a silk scarf. So everybody knows the silk scarf is either worth $50 or $200. So there, you don't have to have, if you want to Mekadesh her, you don't have to have the price tag on it or an appraisal on it. If you just give her the silk scarf and she has an estimation of what it's worth, she could become a Kudesha. Some people held that you have to have the exact scarf appraised. She has to know what it's exactly worth. But this, by the way, is true only by silk scarves. But the minhag today is we don't mekadesh a woman with a diamond ring, because the diamond ring, either it could be worth $10,000 or it could be a knockoff, Chinese knockoff, which is worth $1.50. So there's such a wide varied price there, it needs to be appraised. And because the diamond needs to be appraised, they mavatal that for a marriage we don't use any diamonds, just a plain ring, and that's everybody knows approximately within the ballpark of what it's worth. If you want to see that clearly, Lefichach Rav Taisa says Nahago Oilam Lekadosh Betabas She'ein Bo Evan, that doesn't have a stone in it. So that comes from this Gemara. The Hilchasa Rab Laza, the halacha is like Rab Laza, who said that if you Mekadesh We learned this yesterday. If you mekadesh with a mana and you only give a dinner, she's become a kudeshes right now, but you still owe her the next 99 dinarim. The hilchasa karava amar Rav Nachman. The halach is like Rav Nachman. If he's mekadesh with something and just gives her a mashkin, instead of paying, he's paying the money. He gave her a collateral, so then he didn't give money, and the collateral is going to be returned. So she basically has really received nothing. So she's not mukudeshes. Nu Gemara, Tana Rabbanan. The rabbis taught. Tana Rabbanan. The rabbis taught. B'shtar ketzad. How are you mekadesh a woman with a shtar? Kosev loy al hanayor or oy al acheres. If you wrote it on a piece of paper or a piece of pottery, alpha pishein shava pruta, even if it's not worth a dime, a penny, a piece of paper. All you got to write on the piece of paper, bitcha mukudeshesli. You write to the father, your daughter is mukudesh to me. Bitcha muresesli, she's engaged to me. Bitcha li'inte, your daughter should be my wife. Hareza mukudeshes, then she becomes mukudeshes, because that's the idea. The husband writes it to either to the wife or to the father who's giving his young daughter, his katana daughter, into marriage. So why should the husband have to write the shtar? When you're selling a piece of field, it's the seller who writes the document. I'm selling my field to so and so. So if who's selling himself, it's the woman selling herself to the man. So why should the man be the one writing the shtar? The woman should be writing the shtar. That's the question. The way a shtar is written to mekadesh a woman is very different than a selling document. Hasam, when I'm trying to sell something, moicher kaisev loy, the seller of the property writes, Sadi mechura lecha. My field is sold to you. Fine. The hacha over here, Baal, who's the purchaser, the husband is the purchaser, Kaisev is writing to the father, Bitcha, your daughter, Mukudeshes Li, is becoming my wife. So why is the purchaser writing the document when it comes to Kedushin? But Rav explained it nicely. Look at the way it's set up in the Chumash. When it comes to selling a property, the pasuk says, a man sells his property. But it has to do with the seller. When it comes to marrying, the pasuk says, that I'm purchasing the wife. But it has to do with the husband, and therefore the husband writes the shtar. Says the Gemara, Hasanami, wait a second, by selling property, the pasuk also uses a case. It says in Yirmiyah, Sodois bakasef yiknu, which means purchase with money fields. So it seems to put the stress on the purchaser. So why is it by fields, by property, the seller is the one that writes the document? Here, the pasuk implies that it's the purchaser who's doing the action over here. So the Gemara says, Kribe yikanu. So read that pasuk as that's being sold. Sodois, fields, bakasef, yikanu are being sold, not yiknu. So the Gemara says you're changing around the nekudos over here in order so it fits in to make sense to you. My time akaris by yikanu. Why are you reading it as fields being sold? Because the pasuk says umachar. Fields are always being sold. Hachaname. So by the woman also. Karibe kiyakiach. When you should read it like this way. When instead of reading a kiyikach ish isha, it should say kiyakiach ish isha. When a woman is sold to a man, yakiach is another way of saying sold. And where do you see that the stress is on the seller when it comes to marriage? Because the pasuk describes a father discussing how he gave his daughter into marriage. He says, "As biti nasati l'ishazeh." I am the one that gave my daughter to this man. So we see that it has to do with the seller, not the buyer. So therefore, the question of the Gemara remains, why is it that the husband is the one that writes the shtar and not the wife? And says the Gemara, El Amar Rava said, Hilkasaninu, it must be a halacha l'Moshe Messinai, and therefore, by marriage, the husband writes the document, and by a selling fields, it's the seller that writes the document. The pasuk, we're just trying to find a pasuk that corresponds, that aligns itself nicely with the halacha l'maishem Sinai, but even though it's questionable, it still remains halacha l'maishem Sinai. The Iba is saying, if you want, I can say Hasam Nami Ksiv. I found another pasuk. Yirmiyahu is saying the ekach, as Yirmiyahu bought a field, and he writes in Yirmiyahu the ekach as sefer hamekna, and I took the document from the seller. So basically, in the time of Yirmiyahu, he's saying, I got the document from the seller. So it's the seller that writes the document. That's why most of the psukim seem to say, when it comes to selling a field, it's the seller that writes the document. And by Kedushin, it seems the stress is on the purchaser. Yikach ish isha, or macheres yikach loy. So there's more psukim that seem to align itself where that the purchaser, which is the husband, is the one that writes the document. Nugamara, v'amar Rava, amar Rav Nachman, kosav loy alanai al acheres. You write it on a piece of paper. Alpha pitchen shava pruta, bitchem mukdeshli, bitchem uresli, bitchem liliinta, bein al yedei aviyah, bein al yedei atzma. If a guy wrote to the father who's trying to give his katana daughter into marriage, you give it to the father, or you can give it to the little girl. Mukudeshes, she will become mukudeshes midaita. He has to be aware that you're not giving the document to him, but you're giving it to his daughter, his little daughter. It's only on a girl that a father could only give his girl into marriage as long as she's not an adult. But if she is an adult, then Mukudesh, and he wrote it, and he's trying to marry an adult girl. Mukudeshes, if he writes it on a piece of paper, all this language, she becomes Mukudeshes. Whether he gives the document to her father, where the father will act as a shliach of his adult daughter, or he gives it directly to his adult daughter. Midata, she has to be aware of it, because in order for her father to accept the document on her behalf, she has to be aware that her father is acting as her agent. We're dealing with a girl that's an adult. Now the Gemara asks a fascinating question. Rav Shimon ben Lakish asked the question. You're telling me that a document has to be written up, and you can marry a girl with a star. What happens? Star Erison shekasu shloil shmo mahu. At star Erison, that you're trying to marry somebody, can I go to the Judaica Plus and pick up a document that says Reuven is marrying Sarah, right? Even though it wasn't written l'shem the person that's going to be using it, it was just printed. Can it be done? We know Gittin has to be written l'shma. What about Kedushin document? If you're using a Kedushin document, does it have to be written l'shma? The question is like this: do we juxtapose the exit to the entrance of a marriage? Ma yitzia, we go to Amud Beis. Ma yitzia, just like when you leave a marriage, be'ina l'shma, the document has to be written l'shma. Af havaya, so also when you come into a marriage, be'ina l'shma, it has to be written l'shma. Or Dilma, or maybe Havayas Ladodi Makshina. We just compare the different methods of acquiring a wife to each other. Remember, there are three different ways. And one of the ways is Kesef, right? By giving money. My Havai the Kesef, just like when you give money to a woman. Loi Be'ina Lishma, the coin doesn't have to be made Lishma for this woman. Af Havai the Shtar. So also the document that you're using to Mekadesh Nisha, if you want to go in that direction, Loi Be'ina Lishma, it doesn't have to be written specifically for her. So that was the question. And who asked this question? I think it's Rav Shimon Lakish. And he asked the question out loud in the yeshiva. But the boss of the boy asked, after Rav Shimon Lakish asked this question, Hada Pashti gave his own answer. It has to be like a get. It means that you have to hire a sofer who knows who the man is and probably knows who the woman is. And he writes that so-and-so wants to marry so-and-so. And that will be the star. But you can't just buy one in a ready-made one like a ksuba document you buy in a sperm store. But the Gemara asks the question, Itma, we learned, if you write it lishma, but she wasn't aware about it. The husband commanded that it should be written, but she wasn't aware that her name is that somebody's writing a Kedushin document on her behalf. So there is a machlekes. Rava Ravina Amri Mukudeshes. Rava Ravina says she's Mukudeshes. Rav Papa Rav Shrevi Amri ain't Mukudeshes. Rav Papa, that's no good. She has to be aware that's being written for her. I'm going to give you the reason of myself and my opponents, and I'm going to give you my own reason. Let me tell you my opponents. Why do they say that she doesn't have to know that this Kedushin document is written on her behalf? The Ksiv, the Yatzav Haisa. Let's see it. It's similar to a get. We juxtapose Kedushin document to a get document. A get has to be written on her for her sake, but she doesn't have to be aware that it's written because she gets the get even against her will. So also when you write a Kedushin document, lishma v'shloi medata, it could be written lishma, but it does not have to be, she doesn't have to be aware that it's being written on her behalf. But I disagree. I'm going to tell you my reason that when you write a Kedushin document, not only the husband it has to be written l'shem the husband, it has to be written that the sofer knows who the wife is going to be, and the wife has to be aware that it's being written on her behalf. Because the Tosik says Yatzu Haisa, Maka Shabaya Litzia, my Yitzia being Das Makna, just like when a woman is leaving, when you're writing a get, the seller, which is the husband, he has to be aware that you're writing a document in his behalf. You can't write a get without the husband's instructions. Afhavaya, so this when they're coming into the marriage, that we need Ba'in Das Makna, the seller, which in this case is the woman selling herself into marriage. She has to be aware that a document is being written on her behalf. She has to give instructions also to the Sefer to that the Sefer should write the star document. So that's a machlekes. Can just the husband go to the Sefer to write a Kedushin document, or both of them have to give instructions to the Sefer to write the Kedushin document? That was the machlekes between Rav Papa and Rava. Now the Gemara asks the question: Meisvei ein kaisun stare erisim v'nesuin ela midash shnehem. So here it says you can't write a star erisin and a marriage document only if they both give the instructions. So here it's clear brisa. Ma lav star erisim v'nesuin mamish. Maybe we're talking in this brisa of the star of marriage and getting engaged. So we see that they both have to give the instructions. And says the Gemara, loy stari pesikta. This has nothing to do with marriage document. It's called the commitment of how much you're giving in dowry, how much each side is bringing to the table to make marriages. Really, this is a fascinating din. If a couple gets engaged and the families that getting together to meet and discuss finances, they're going to ask each other, how much are you giving to your son for marriage? What is he bringing? Kach v'kach. He's bringing someone such and such. Lebitcha, how much are you giving to your daughter? Kach v'kach. I'm giving her this. So amdu v'kitchu, if they get engaged, kanu. That means they have to keep their words. Hein hadvarim haniknim ba'amira. Those are things that you don't really need a kinyan for. You don't need a chalipin, a suda, or anything like that. The fact that they say it out from their mouths that they're going to commit to this, they have to keep their words, because it's almost like the hana, the enjoyment of getting engaged, makes their commitment to such a thing fully binding. So therefore, the Bryce is saying it's a fully binding commitment, but don't write it on a star, because if you write it on a star without them knowing about it, then it becomes so binding that you could put lien on properties, unless they both give instructions that we wanted to even be bound where you could put a lien on the property. Let's do one more minute and then we'll stop. Ubabia, and the Brisa says, you know what? Ubabia. Brisa says like this: Minola. How do you know that you mekadesh a woman with bia? So really, if you look at the pasuk says, I have it on the screen, ki yikach ish ish ubala. That's how you take a wife and get her married. You do bia. So Amar Rabba Rabbi Yochanan says, I have another pasuk. Amakra, the pasuk says, B'ulas Baal. The way you become a husband is by doing bia. Baal that has to do bia. The lamich nasul Baal they beila. The only way to become a husband is through bia. Rab Zera said, Rabbo, what's wrong with the regular pasuk? Is it so repulsive what Rebbe said? The pasuk says, Ba'ala, Malamed, Sheniknas Babia. From here you learn that she's Niknas Babia. So why do I need another pasuk of Be'ulas Baal to teach you that you can marry a woman by doing bia? The pasuk really just straight out says, if you want to marry a woman, you have to kikach ish ubala. You do bia. So the Gemara says, if I would have only that pasuk, havamina, I would have thought adam mekadesh bal. First, you have to do kedushin, and then do bia. It means that what the pasuk is saying. I kept reading you this pasuk. Ki ish ubala. A man takes a woman, or he does bia. But what the Gemara is saying is, if I don't have Rabbi Yochanan's pasuk, I read this pasuk as if a man gives kesef for kedushin, in order to make the kedushin 100%, he has to also do bia. So it's kesef and bia. That's why Rabbi Yochanan had to bring another pasuk. Kamash Malan, that's why we have another pasuk Bu'ulas Baal. That just bia alone, just intercourse alone, is enough to consummate the engagement. Okay, we'll continue this discussion Be'ez Hashem tomorrow.